Okay, and we're live. And it is Monday, January 29th. I cannot believe it is January 29th already. For anybody that is joining me, hello live. Otherwise, you'll see this in the feed, which a lot of you have been seeing and commenting, and I appreciate your comments. I do have the comments box here, but nothing's coming through lately, so all good. Anyway, if you saw my post, which was way longer than I wanted it to be, but I'm a little passionate about this topic, and it's just lately these things have been kind of just dropping into my mind, spirit, and I feel like I need to put them out there. And again, this one was really inspired. I was thinking about Dr. Bailey, which is the woman that took her life a few weeks ago that worked at an HBCU. And it was because of workplace bullying. And I vowed to drop as much knowledge as I can and build self-awareness to leaders in order for this not to happen again, because there's a lot of things that happen like this in the workplace. And so in this installment of my live, I wanted to talk about the stories that people tell. And there's a few things that come up when I think about this. And of course, you can read the post. I put a lot in there, so I don't know that I'm going to revisit all of that. But, I'm thinking of the gossip that goes on. And when I think of gossip, there's a few things that can happen in respect to that. As human beings, we tend to gossip. Some of us more than others. And it really is a negative thing. We should not be engaging in that, especially as leaders, especially if it is based upon differences. And so let me jump into that, because this is really around inclusive leadership, which most of what I post is around inclusive leadership. That is a very broad topic, and it has a lot of nuances to it. And I try to bring some of these things to light that sometimes as leaders, we feel like we're too far up the ladder to think about these things, but you need to, because it all is around your image and what you're projecting. And it is the subtle little things that'll eat away at the image that you're trying to project. And it will also be a blind spot for you, because a lot of these things are what I call unconscious biases. And so when we can bring them to light, they are no longer unconscious, and now they are decisions that you're making. And so I wanted to bring up the point about gossip, because what happens with that is there are times that we can really lose very strong, amazing, innovative people. We can lose them within the business. We can lose them when they're leaving the business, because they can feel isolated when they're in the business, because maybe they think differently than others. And oftentimes when you're in an environment when people can be very competitive, and if you hadn't heard my competitive live, look at that. That was the one before this one. We can do some mean things. And what happens in groups is we can tend to move into what we call this group think. Because when it is, what is the word I'm looking for? When it is something that you can justify, because the group is always being praised for how they work together, or the products that they're building. And if others, maybe there could be some outliers in the group that don't necessarily think the way the group thinks, or does things the way the group thinks, then the group can think that that individual doesn't fit, or isn't good enough, or isn't smart enough, or is quirky. And we want to tease them because of that. And when in the group think all works in tandem with that, it then becomes a group bullying to the person that may not flow the way that group flows, or may not be able to connect with that group for different reasons. I've been in an environment like that. And oftentimes it's the person that is being ostracized in that way, whether it is directly or indirectly, or part of this group think. There's a lot of damage that can be done. And there's a lot of benefit, or there's a lot of gifts to the business that get lost with those people being ostracized. And so all that to say, I'm going to bring it back. All that to say, just be mindful of that. If we are treating somebody differently, or if there is some backbiting and back talking about someone, why don't you inquire a little bit more before you jump in or agree with it, or just walk away and allow it to happen? Because the impacts of that can be far beyond anything that you can imagine, because you don't know what's going on with that other person. And what I can tell you is when people feel like they are not a part of, And they're always being made to feel like they're not a part of, very openly and outwardly, because what happens with groupthink, it makes that behavior acceptable. And it's never acceptable. And as a leader of a group that this may be happening in, it is not for you to turn your back on it and say they're grown adults, they should figure it out. It is for you to nip that in the bud, because you are responsible for creating a psychologically safe environment for your team, because when they have that, they can thrive in the work that they do, and it makes them feel seen and valued and yada yada. And others can grow when they are forced to have to work with people that may not think like them, and know that it is okay, and it is part of us working together as a team, an integrated team, to be able to do that, because it is way more comfortable than to make everybody come to the way that the group thinks, versus the group stretching themselves and being able to work within an environment where they are stretched at what they're doing. What can happen, go back to my live the other day, is that people that are in a position that are trying to gain power and gain visibility and gain influence oftentimes don't want to be put out of their comfort zone, so they make their way the right way. And anybody that can't fit into that, well, they're going to be at the hands of this bullying or being ostracized or whatever you want to call that. And that's not cool. No matter the way, how you look at that. And if you are someone that tends to do that without realizing it, or just you have the need to make your environment comfortable, then you got a problem. Because if you do want to have influence, then you have to learn to become uncomfortable, because you need to grow in order to be able to expand your abilities and your capabilities. Then you need to be able to flex and grow in areas that maybe are not as comfortable for you, and being able to work with people that you're not as comfortable with. And yeah, I got a little energy around that, because that has happened to me in the past. And I wish I had enough voice, and I wish I had enough clarity of thought back then to be able to speak up more, but I just put my head down and kept working. And I can tell you that a lot of people that are different than others, and that difference may be in the color of your skin, that difference may be the way that you think and the way that you're wired and the way that you do your work, or the way that you look at things, or it could be that maybe you have what we call a disability, or you're differently abled. Right? Or it could be that you are coming from another culture, and so you have a heavy accent. And there are a lot of stigmas that are put on people that have heavy accents. And so all that to say is being mindful. Another way in which we can ostracize people is, I have seen where there are groups of people that were friends at one time or another, and then maybe something happened with one, and somebody didn't like it, and so they started to talk about that person and some of the personal things that they may know about that person that now everybody knows. And that person is now being treated differently because of that, which is not cool on so many levels. And all of us may have been victim of that at some point, whether it be in school, or whether it be in a friend group, or even, whether it be at work. And where I find it to be the most unacceptable is when it happens with a leader. An immature leader that maybe they know a little bit more about someone and some struggles that they've had, and they use that information in order to hold that person back, or to cast that person in a certain light with certain levels of leaders, and so they don't have the ability to thrive and grow as they should. And so there's a couple things there, right? There's one where there's a trust that's been broken, and it has been done in a manipulative way for whatever reason, whether because that person made you uncomfortable and something happened and you wanted to get rid of them, and so you use that in order to be able to do that. Or it could be that because you were not self-aware, you just didn't realize that the information that you were sharing was making that person look in a bad light. And the challenge that we can all have is we can believe what people tell us about others. And then we've already sized up who they are without even giving them a chance. And so when they do come into the mix, we overlook them. We don't want to be bothered with them because of what somebody else said. But what I will encourage you to do, especially as a leader, and I mean most leaders should know this, You should not believe what other people tell you about other people. You need to confirm that for yourself instead of shaping the way in which we see people through other people's eyes, because we all process information differently based on our experiences, based on our biases, and other things. And those biases can be unconscious. Those experiences could be one-off experiences, and the way in which we responded to them could have been from other experiences, because there's layers to those things. And so we just need to be mindful of what is going on around us and how other people are being treated, and what does it look like in the body language versus what people are saying, because it is just not cool to lose a coworker to workplace bullying. And I can't imagine those people that were there that may have been seeing something but didn't say something, because we're all supposed to be strong and we're all adults, and nobody, we just will never think that the extreme will happen, but it can. And so being an inclusive leader and creating an inclusive environment means that you're creating a safe environment for everyone. And it means that we are judging people based on face value and experiences that we've had with them. And it means that we don't use information that we know about people that could have come to you authentically from that individual that trusted you, or maybe secondhand, and utilize that to manipulate or control other people, because it's just not cool. And so I want us all to really get to a place where we are being human, and we are treating others like humans, and we are being empathetic about how others are feeling. We are moving into a year of, it's going to be difficult with a lot of things that are going on in this election year, and a lot of the things and the strong opinions that people have about things that are going on in the world. And I believe everybody should have their own opinion. And I believe that everybody should have the space and the opportunity to have an opinion, and not to be bullied into not having an opinion, right? I think we are in a free country. We should be able to think and do and be the way that we want, as long as we're not hurting another person. And so let's just be mindful of that, the health of the people in our organization, the mental health of the people in our organization, and what it is that we can do as leaders, and making sure we're being the best inclusive leaders by embracing differences. And remember, I always say this, and I'm going to continue to say it, as leaders, no matter what level you're at, if you have some form of influence, we teach others how to treat others. And we also teach others how we want to be treated by what we tolerate, right? And so we need to be clear on our boundaries as well. And if you are a person that's struggling right now, if you're in a place where you're feeling bullied, if you're struggling with getting boundaries, and you are starting to move to a place of crisis, then seek out some help. I know I haven't said that before, but let's just say that. It feels obvious, but maybe it's not obvious. And somebody's going to see this video, because this dropped in my spirit so strongly today when I was working out at the gym, that I said, I'm just going to do a live on this, and hope whoever needs to see it sees it. And certainly, you could start the conversation in any of these posts that I make. I do try to go in there and respond. And for those of you that have been responding and have been commenting and been sending me inboxes of thank yous, you're more than welcome. And it is your thank yous that are making me continue on with this quest. So if you feel that somebody else can use it, share it. I go live. I post these to my YouTube page as well. But LinkedIn is usually my page of source. And so, yeah. I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to say to be well, and watch the stories that people tell. Okay? Because there's always three sides. There's our story, there's their story, and then there's the truth somewhere in the middle. But as leaders, we need to make sure that we're listening to all sides, and we're being empathetic to all sides, and we're not leaving anybody out in the cold, in a place where they don't feel safe, especially where they are coming into the workplace to make a living, right? All right. I'm out. Any other topics you think of that you may want me to touch on, certainly reach out. And as always, you can continue to inbox me or comment on my posts. I appreciate you. Have a wonderful Monday.